enjoyed it. Ready to begin? Oh, screen went away again. There we go. Good afternoon. This meeting of the Community Development Board is called to order on January 21st, 2020. Welcome, everyone. If everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This board consists of 7 members and 1 alternate who are appointed by the City Council and serve voluntarily. I am Michael Bootskas, and I will ask the other members and the staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Mary Lau.
Mike Flannery.
Brian Barker.
Jay Daigneault, attorney for the board.
Michael Foligno, Assistant City Attorney.
Gina Clayton, Planning and Development Department.
Elizabeth Vanscoy.
Jordan Behar.
John Quattrocki.
Chris Anaskevich.
Please remember to turn off your cell phones so that they not become a distraction during the meeting. Please also refrain from having conversations in this room so that we might hear all the testimony given today. To ensure a complete record of this board's actions, we ask that each individual wishing to speak, including the applicant, speak into the microphone at the podium in front of us. Clearly state your name and spell your last name for the clerk. Now we'll ask all those in attendance today who plan to speak to please rise and be sworn in by the clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the entire truth?
Agendas of today's meeting are on the podium to your left near the entry door. Please, also on this podium are a roster of the Community Development Board, the list of city staff experts and their resumes, the board's rules of procedure, and the annual schedule of this board. Our first order of business today is to review and approve the minutes from last month's meeting. May I have a motion for approval of minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the items to be heard from the citizens. If there's anybody here who wants to speak on something that's not on today's agenda, you can approach the podium. Seeing none, then we'll move on to our consent agenda. This board has adopted a consent agenda format, and the consent items are identified as such on the agenda. Consent agenda items are those items for which the Planning and Development Department recommends approval. The applicant is in agreement with any proposed conditions, and no written objections to the case have been received to date. Items may be removed from the consent agenda today by a member of the board, a member of the staff, or any person in the audience for questions or objections. I'll read each item on the consent agenda, and if any person wishes to remove this item from the consent agenda, please so state or raise your hand, and we will remove it from the consent agenda. Items removed from the consent agenda will be heard in the regular order of the meeting. Items that remain on the consent agenda will be approved with a single vote. Our consent agenda today includes case FLD 2019-10029 at 207 Coronado Drive. The owner is Penn Coronado, Inc. The representative is John Pantazis with Pantazis Architecture and Design. The property is 130 feet south of the intersection of Coronado and Devon Drive. And the request is to review a proposed 2,519 square foot restaurant in the tourist zoning district. Anybody wish to have this item removed from the consent agenda? Okay, those are our consent agenda items. May I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve case FLD 2019-10029 on today's consent agenda based on evidence in the record, including the application and staff report, and hereby adopt findings of fact and conclusions of law stated in the staff report with conditions of approval as listed.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Do I have any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That concludes our consent agenda. Continuing on with our regular agenda, we have one level 2 application. It's case FLD 2018-07021 and a whole bunch of the numbers to follow, but let me read the procedures first. All level 2 cases, such as flexible development, are considered quasi-judicial hearings. In the quasi-judicial hearing, the Community Development Board reviews the application, the staff reports, correspondence, and all evidence presented today, and makes the final decision subject to appeal. The board has previously qualified all the city staff who will testify as experts in the areas of professional training, education, and experience. The list of city staff experts and their resumes are in the handbook on the podium near the entry door. Any other professionals who desire to be qualified as an expert witness shall so request at the beginning of the case and present a resume to each board member. The board shall determine whether or not to qualify the person as an expert and in what field of study. At the beginning of each level 2 case, I will ask for anyone who wishes to request party status to come forward and state your reasons. Party status may be granted if the person requesting such status demonstrates that he is a substantially affected person. The board will then determine whether or not to grant party status. The case will then proceed as follows. After request of party status, presentation by planning and development staff, 10 minutes, presentation by the applicant, 10 minutes, presentation by persons with party status, 5 minutes per party maximum. Cross-examination of witnesses by planning and development staff, cross-examination of witnesses by applicant, and cross-examination of witnesses by persons with party status. Comments by the public, 3 minutes per person. Closing remarks by the planning and development staff, 3 minutes maximum. Closing remarks by the persons granted party status, 3 minutes maximum. And closing remarks by the applicant, 3 minutes maximum. We'll then close the public hearing, have discussion, and vote by the board. Our first level 2 case today is case FLD 2018-07021 to 2294, 2292, 2286, 2284, 2278, 2276. These are all the addresses of the property, I'm guessing. 2270, 2268, 2262, 2260, 2254, 2252, 2246, 2244, 2238, 2236, 2222, and 2220 Spring Lake Court, formerly known as 1895 Virginia Avenue. The owner is Gulfwind Contracting LLC. The agent is Robert Pergolese, and the property is at Virginia Avenue, 1,130 feet, 5 feet east of Keene Road, and reconsideration of a conditional approval associated with the previously approved 18-unit attached dwelling development. Is there anybody who would like to seek party status in this matter today? There being none, then we'll begin with the presentation.
Good afternoon. This is case FLD 2018-07021, and the case actually was approved by this board on October 16th, 2018, and it was for a 20-unit townhouse development project. The approval included language in the development order regarding the fence material type that was supposed to be proposed for the project site. The project was a 20-unit originally. They did come through on an administrative minor revision, and that was approved August 9th of 2019, and the change was reducing it from 20 units to 18 units. And this was because on the western property line, there's a buffer area and the lake, sort of Spring Lake, that divides the development to the adjacent residential area. And additional area had to be added to that buffer, and so that reduced the land area eligible for the dwelling units. So the project has been reduced to 18 units. It remains as 18 units, and if you can see on my second slide, I identified the subject property, and the question was the condition of approval that was included in the development order was not very clear in terms of exactly where a certain type of fence should be proposed, and the language resulted in what you see on the slide was masonry columns separated by substantial grill work, which is a requirement for this zoning district when you have a fence forward of a structure towards the street. So this is the fence material that is appropriate for the Virginia Avenue frontage, and this material that is being shown on this slide will then wrap around the back of the first 4 lots, and that's where then it transitions to where the environmentally sensitive buffer area is. And I have that highlighted on the next slide. So the blue area delineates where the pond is, and the orange line identifies the 15-foot required buffer to that environmentally sensitive area, where city staff actually recommended that a split rail fence be installed. So what the split rail fence will help to do is define the backyard area of the future homeowners, and then also help to protect that environmentally sensitive land. The other fence material that's being proposed is on the eastern boundary line, where the property abuts the individual homeowner lots to the east, which is unincorporated Pinellas County. And along that property line, they're going to install a 6-foot-high textured vinyl fence. And you can see that on the image of the slide, it's going to be sort of in an earth tone color. And the 2 additional fence materials were not permitted because the language in the development order was so restrictive that's why we're now coming back to the board to request that clarification of the condition of approval to allow the developer to put in the more appropriate fence materials on the other portions of the lot. So that is the only change that's being proposed, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions? All right, thank you very much. Does the applicant have anything to add?
Nothing to add, but we're happy to answer any questions.
All right, does anybody have any questions of the applicant? There being none, not really much in the way of cross-examination either then. Any other further comments from the city? Okay, well, from the applicant. Then at that point, I guess I'll close the public hearing and we'll have discussion and vote by the board. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, you want to take comments by the public?
Oh, I'm sorry. Very good. Then I won't close the public hearing. And is there any comments from the public on this matter? There being none, okay. I will close the public hearing, and at this point, is there any discussion amongst the board, or do I have a motion?
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve case number FLD 2018-07021, PLT 2018-090001, based on evidence and testimony presented in the application, the staff report, and at today's hearing, and just approve the change in the clarification in the permitted fence.
The language included in your memo, the proposed clarification language is in the actual memo.
Oh, yes. All right, incorporating that clarified language.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Everybody clear on the motion? If you've read your memo? Okay, very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay. That concludes our level 2 applications. Any director's items?
I know that Sherry talked to you all briefly at the meeting about your experience with using the electronic agenda system, and I'd like to hear your feedback and maybe talk about whether we want to move forward with using that once we get a month or two under our belt with our new e-permit hub system.
No, I mean, I think I had an issue on my side once I figured it out. It worked well. I think it's absolutely worth taking the step towards trying to work with it. It's just a little bit challenging to dig really deep sometimes and to look at big drawings and to cross-reference, but I think it's just a learning curve issue. So I'm still highly for it.
Anybody else?
Well, we'll go forward as well.
I would like to be able to, if it's on my laptop, that I did it from home, I'd like to be able to bring my laptop in here so I don't have to do everything again. Is that probably the way it would work?
I think we need to figure out the best way to handle viewing plans from, the dais. So I think what we ought to do is wait a month or two, see how our new system is working with the e-permit hub, because we're going to be having the actual application scanned, whereas now it's an online application that you really can't review. So let's see how some of the changes work for you, and then we'll try to get the answers to that kind of question. Can you bring a laptop, or do you have to use what's here? And then hopefully, by the spring, we can move into going electronic, if that's the consensus of the board.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that kind of works well. I think we just start implementing it on a light load, let's not have our first month with 20 projects. Today would have been perfect.
Good point.
Right. Well, so, let's keep using it for a couple of months, and then when you all feel like you're ready to go electronic, then we'll move forward.
So it sounds like for the time being, you'll be able to click on the agenda regardless, and also we'll get the packets on a Thursday before like we've been getting them.
Right.
Until we say, okay, we're all
Correct.
good with that, then we'll keep going that way.
Yes.
That makes the most amount of sense.
Unless Jay has some other concerns that he wants to bring forward, that's the way.
That's at your election. I think when you all are comfortable together, go for it.
Anything you want to add, Ella?
Okay.
I will say I appreciate having a little extra time, too. I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because you
That
can
was
start
helpful.
seeing once cases are finished, that otherwise you might have to wait because other ones are not as fast to be completed, so.
Right.
Good. All right, well, we'll just keep communicating with us, and hopefully we'll be moving forward in a new direction in a few months. Thank you all for being open to that. We appreciate it.
There being no other business, we're adjourned for today.